But again, like joking apart, the blasphemy things did your head in. The legal threats, the collapse of the work and everything, it did kind of stress me out. So I did what anyone would do under the circumstances, which was to drink heavily every day. But it's difficult to drink in the countryside, right? It's not like here in Cardiff, where the streets are thronged with revellers all the time. Nothing going on, you know. I used to have to walk about 2 miles to the nearest pub. And I'd get in there and there'd just be the same 3 old blokes every night. And they'd go, "Oh, the blasphemers arrived, cross yourselves, lads." You know. And they'd make me drink stuff without telling me what it was. They'd go, "Have some of this." And I'd go, "All right, I'll have a pint of that." A pint? Yeah. Have about 4 pints of this stuff. I thought it was real ale. It turns out it's this thing called barley wine, right? And you're only supposed to have like an egg cup of it, basically. But no one told me that, because I wasn't from there. I was from a town. Right. So I went out at about I was trashed about 11:30 at night. Could hardly stand. I was mad anyway and paranoid because of all this blasphemy stuff. Stressed out. And I was scared about how I was going to get home in the dark. But I set off along the road. And after about 2 minutes, exactly what I was worried about happened. A big lorry came round. I thought it was going to hit me. I had to jump into this kind of agricultural drainage ditch. I came out all covered in water and mud and animal excrement and stuff. And I carried on walking along the road. And then about 4 minutes later, about 300 yards ahead of me on the right, I saw this kind of white figure, like a ghost. Right now, I'm not superstitious. I was drunk and I was under a lot of stress and paranoid, so I thought, I'm imagining this. I ignored it, right? And I tried to walk past it. When I got about 10, 15 feet away from this thing, I recognised it as being Jesus, right? But even so, I still thought it was my imagination, okay? Because we all know Jesus should be black or Arabic or Jewish or whatever. I had given him the face of Robert Powell. The 1970s television Jesus. So I thought it was my subconscious. Or Jesus was real and he had chosen to appear to me in a form that I would recognise. Because he would know that I also used to watch the detectives. Right? He could have come as Jasper Carrott. Which is the same initials, right? But Robert Powell is a more holy kind of figure, and but even so, I thought, this is my subconscious, I'm going nuts. I tried to walk on past it, but as I got level with Jesus, he took my hand and he started to lead me along the lane. Even then, I thought, this is still my subconscious. What do I want? A, I want to get home safely, and B, I have this anxiety about reconnecting with faith, and he's taking my hand in my imagination. That's what that is, right? It's not real. But then he started talking to me, Jesus. He said to me, "Stu," that kind of swung it. He said to me, "Stu, I know that my representatives on earth have come out against you and your co-workers and loved ones and accused you of blasphemy," he said, "but I forgive you," he said, "and I want you, if you can, to find it in your heart to forgive me." And I said to him, "What do you mean, Jesus?" And he said, "Well, Stu," he said, "there was another man, wasn't there, 2,000 years ago, who annoyed the religious establishment of his time. In fact, a lot of people didn't like some of the true things that he had to say. And in fact, they crucified him for it, Stu, and maybe, just maybe, you are the rightful inheritor of his crown." Now, can I just make clear at this point, right? I am not saying that I'm Jesus, okay? I'm not saying that I am Jesus. That's for you to think about. I'm not saying I'm Jesus, right? I'm not. But if I was him, I'm not. But if I was him, this, not. But if I was him, I'm not. But if I was him, I'm not him. I'm not him, right? I know you think I am, but I'm not. You're going, yeah. But if you were, you would say you weren't, wouldn't you? To trick us. I'm not. I'm not him. right? I'm not Jesus. I'm not him. Come on. That would be ridiculous. I'm the last person that he would come as. It definitely wouldn't be me. Well, maybe he would. I'm not, right? I'm not Jesus, right? But if I was him, this is the kind of place I would come and speak, isn't it? Yeah. Not in the vain, arrogant Millennium Centre. I would come here, to this humble place. And I would speak to people like you, to drunks and whores. I would come here. I would come here. I would come here in Canton, to this simple, humble place with adequate but ultimately limited wheelchair access. Because I would know from the first time around, they all come clamouring, heal me Jesus, heal me. There's only so much one man can do. You can't have a quota system. So it's better to just speak in a place where they can't get in. With the best will in the world. With the best will in the world. With the best will in the world. We mean nothing by it. It's cool. So he was leading me along the road, Jesus. And within about a minute, the same thing had happened again. Another big lorry came round. I was scared. But he seemed to do something to either slow it down, or we became immaterial. It passed through us. We weren't hurt. But that panicked me, and the alcohol kicked in. I started stumbling around. What he did, Jesus, was he grabbed my right arm and he hooked it over his shoulder like that. And he started carrying me along like you would a drunk mate, you know. Now, initially, I thought this was a bit of an imposition. But then I realised he did have some previous experience of carrying a heavy burden in that way. And to be honest, under more difficult circumstances. And he seemed to like the warmth, the human contact. And in that way, we finally got to my mum's front door, and I started trying to get the key in and fumbling around. And then I thought, this is a bit weird. Jesus is here. What's the correct etiquette? Am I supposed to ask him in for a coffee? You know, and hope that he doesn't read anything into that. Okay, I'm not saying that Jesus is gay. That's part of what caused the problems last year. But 1 in 10 people are, and you can't, especially in a port town, but you can't make assumptions. And while I was thinking about this, he disappeared. And I felt bad, because I was grateful that he helped me home, but I was relieved I didn't have to deal with what to do, and I felt like I'd betrayed him. But he'd gone, and I was relieved. And I let myself into the house, and as soon as I got in, I realised I was going to be sick. But I didn't want to go upstairs where my mum was asleep and wake her up. So I ran round to this little room my mum's got by the back door. Your mum's probably got a room like this, okay? It's about as big as this front of this stage, okay? And there's a little hand basin here, and there's a toilet here, and here there's a towel rail. And on the towel rail is a little hand towel. That hand towel isn't to be used for hands, okay? That hand towel is only to be used for wiping the cat's feet when the cat comes in wet from the garden, okay? It's the cat's feet towel. Don't wipe your hands on that, Stu. It's the cat's feet towel. Use your hair. So, I ran round to this little room, but before I could get a grip, I was immediately sick all over the floor, right? All over my mum's floor. So I bent down. I wasn't myself, remember, I was mad. And I tried to scoop up the sick. But doing that made me be sick again, and I was sick all down my clothes until my clothes had become covered in sick. And so I groped around, and I ended up grabbing the cat's feet towel. And I used that to try and wipe it, but there was too much. And the cat's feet towel became overwhelmed, saturated with sick. If the cat had come in now, with wet feet. They would have had to stay wet. Or have sick put on them. Which would leave worse footprints. And looking at that cat's feet towel, that made me be sick again. I was sick into the basin until the hand basin was overflowing with sick. So I tried to scoop the sick out of the hand basin and fling it into the toilet. But doing that made me be sick again. I was sick on top of that sick in there until the toilet was blocked up with sick. And I stepped back and I shut my eyes and I thought, that's it now, surely. No more. But then I felt the sick rising in me again, and I thought, what am I supposed to do? The floor's covered in sick. My clothes are covered in sick. The cat's feet towel is a write-off. Frankly, the hand basin's overflowing with sick. The toilet's overflowing with sick. What am I supposed to do? Then I opened my eyes and I looked down, and on my left, on the floor, kneeling down, smiling, looking up at me, was Jesus. And he was pointing at his open mouth. As if what he wanted was for me to vomit into the open mouth of Christ. And I looked down and I thought, this can't be right. But he was pointing and laughing and smiling and encouraging me. And then I remembered he did have some history of sacrifice. So against my better judgment, at his apparent insistence, I did it. I vomited into the open mouth of Christ until the mouth of Christ was overflowing with my sick. Now, right, I've been doing stand-up for 17 years, okay, and I can sense when there's tension in a room. And I know why it is, and I understand it. Basically, there's a performer-audience bond of trust built up. We have worked on that together over the last hour. And you think, yes, there is, Stu, but you've broken that bond of trust. Because we weren't expecting to be made to visualise this image. There was no warning of this. It wasn't flagged up. There was no indication that you would do something like this, especially when you opened with all that light-hearted material about the bombings. And if you feel betrayed, you have my sympathies. I'm sorry, right there. But I'm just trying to understand this, and there is a performer-audience relationship, and there are probably people here thinking, yes, there is, Stu, and you have presumed upon that relationship. This is inappropriate. It's too much too soon. It's gone too far. It's presumptuous to do this. It's like fingering someone on a first date. You wouldn't do it. Even at arm's length. Wearing a mitten. Through the shattered window of a rural bus shelter. At the end of an otherwise pleasant evening, as an inappropriate gesture of thanks. You wouldn't do that, Stu, so why are you doing this? Why? Why? And there's probably other people here going, yeah, it's like a relationship, Stu, the performer-audience relationship, but tonight, with what you've done, you have made it feel like a marriage, and it feels like a marriage that's gone on for too long, and is in its death throe. And if you feel like that, if you feel like this is a marriage that's gone on too long, right, then maybe it's time for you to start seeing other comedians. Right? And I can't pretend that I'd be happy about that, right? I wouldn't be, okay? But if that would help to keep the spark of this alive, then you should do it. You should go and see them. Go and see them, and I will wait for you to come back to me, because I love you. And I will come here when you're all laughing at something else, when you're laughing at Nico and Joe's film club. I will come here and I'll be behind those railings up there, and I'll be watching you, giving them the laughs that you owe to me. And I'll be crying. But because it's you and I love you, I won't be able to stop myself from becoming aroused. Fence thing. And I'll be crouching down and I'll be watching you all laughing. Ha ha ha. And I'll be crying, right? But I will also be masturbating. Right? And I will be enjoying that unique fusion of profound grief and violent sexual arousal. And that's the most profound feeling anyone can ever have. And if you have never had that feeling, you won't understand me. And if you don't understand me, how do you expect this to work out, right? So you have to understand that feeling. If you've never experienced that, then if someone that you love has died, right? Don't take flowers to the grave. Take whatever apparatus you need to achieve a state of mind whereby you can pay them the highest tribute of all. So I vomited into the open mouth of Christ. And I stepped back and I shut my eyes and I thought, that's it now, surely, no more. But then I felt the sick rising in me again. And I thought, what am I supposed to do now? The floor is covered in sick, my clothes are covered in sick, the cat's feet towel is covered in sick, the sink's overflowing with sick, the toilet's overflowing, the open mouth of Christ is overflowing with sick. What? And then I opened my eyes and I looked down and he was there again, Jesus, on my right. But this time he had his back to me and he was doing a kind of handstand by the sink. And his raiment had slipped down. It looked like a kind of third-length floral print hospital gown. And he had his right hand on the floor to balance him upside down. And with his left hand, he was using the fingers to kind of splay open his anus. As if what he wanted was for me to vomit into the gaping anus of Christ.
And don't imagine, Charlie, that I come here and talk about this lightly, okay? I thought that I asked around. I know it's a bit much, but I asked around. I asked Tony Law, he's a Canadian stand-up comedian, he's the most reasonable man I know. I said to him, Tony, do you honestly think I can go around the country in front of people and use the phrase, I vomited into the gate? And he said, well, possibly if it's in context. Knock yourself. Into the gaping anus of Christ until the anus of Christ was overflowing. I did that. Are you happy now?
And then I sat back and I shut my eyes and I thought, that's it now, surely, no more. But then I felt the sick rising in me again. And I thought, what am I supposed to do? The floor is covered in sick, my clothes are covered in sick, the cat's feet towel is ruined. The sink's overflowing with sick, the toilet, the anus. Then I remembered, lads, you know when you're doing a wee in the toilet, right? And there's a bit of poo on the back of the bowl, and you think, ooh, I'll hose that off. That's my cleaning done for the week. So what I did was I got my penis out and as respectfully and tenderly and accurately as I could, and I urinated into the gaping anus of Christ, so that all the vomit there kind of foamed up and went on the floor, leaving just enough room for me to vomit for one second and final time into the gaping anus of Christ, which I then did. And then my mum came in. She looked at the sick on the floor. She looked at the sick all down my clothes. She looked at the cat's feet towel, all covered in sick. She was irritated by that. She looked at the sink overflowing with sick, the toilet overflowing with sick, the gaping anus of Christ overflowing with my sick. And she said to me, have you been sick? Into the gaping anus of Christ. And I said, no, this was like this when I got here. The cat must have done it. And she said, the cat's in the garden and his feet are wet. And I'd like to know what you propose to do about that, given the current state of the cat's feet towel. And then she said to me, it was you, wasn't it? And I said, yes. And she said, let me give you some advice. And I listened because I love her and she tends to be right. She said, given your current situation, she said, and the state of the world as it is, she said, under no circumstances can you ever consider talking about this incident on stage. And I said to her, well, I might have to. And she said, well, I can't stop you, but, she said, that's what she always used to do when I was a kid, I can't stop you, but. It's like putting the ball in your court. She said, I can't stop you, but, she said, if you are going to talk about this, you have to know why you're doing it, what kind of point you're trying to make. And I said to her, well, three things, Mother. Firstly, to make the point that a symbol, be it an icon or a flag or whatever, is only as worthy of respect as the values of the people that appropriate it. Secondly, that if a symbol goes out into the world, into places where it's perhaps not understood or wanted or valued, you shouldn't be too upset if it then takes on a shape you don't recognise as your own. And thirdly, that if you attempt to apply limits to freedom of expression, either through legislation or intimidation or threats, what will then happen is that reasonable people, often against their own better judgment, will feel obliged to test those limits by going into areas they don't feel entirely comfortable with. I personally haven't enjoyed the last half hour at all. I do it only to safeguard your liberty. That's never had a clap before, which probably means it is time to stop doing this show. And then she said to me, that's very interesting, Stu, but I don't believe you. Why would you really be telling that story? And I said to her, All I want, Mother, is just once in my life to be able to put my hand on my heart and say, in all honesty, that I've written a joke that Joe Pasquale won't be able to steal.